Hi, time for an edition of Simply Stated. For this edition of the show, we'll be talking about the holiday of Christmas and some other issues. And some other issues is what I said. Essentially, for this part of the season, I've gone through a list of everything from decorating to a few holiday classics. What the holiday actually means for a lot of people. And in the end, come to the conclusion that I needed to do at least one or two shows on some of the issues I dealt with, having gone through some pretty severe labor trafficking in the US. And the severity of it, and the fact that, unfortunately, a lot of problems was linked to the fact that there were far too many people in my own government, especially at the federal level, who were okay with it. As long as they felt like they got something for free or something set up for themselves or a payback, they were perfectly okay with it. And there are still too many people today who get way too angry when anybody points that out. And I have still yet to get restitution for any of the issues I went through. And I'm not the only person who's gone through it. And that's actually the major point of the two different shows. The Thought Project, just so you know, and Simply State, that there were simply too many people who took it too personally. The fact that I was actually trafficked by people who were primarily Russian and Iranian who would come to the US illegally in some cases, that were simply wealthy and able to play games with the US government or even insert their own people into the US government employees, is also an issue I've addressed repeatedly and in depth. The fact that I became so well known to the federal government because of my issues is a whole other long story, which mostly was already covered in the Thought Project, just so you know it has to be left there. However, one person did bring up the issue to me this week of witnesses being forced to testify over and over, even though their testimony was more than enough originally to have done the job they need to do, which also comes back to the issue of the traffickers, abusers in this country, for whatever reason, being obsessed with attention themselves and wanting witnesses to have to retestify when they actually don't need to or have to legally, which is important to know, because you can actually get into a lot more trouble harassing and bothering witnesses and considered a person who's actually tampered with evidence by demanding they retestify against you, which is unfathomable to anyone who is reasonably sane. But you have to understand, in Russian and Iranian culture, they actually think of it as a form of compliment, which is why the rest of us don't waste our time on it. As for the show today, I had to go through a couple of cliches that I took apart over the years for myself. One was the old idea that God doesn't put people into your life for no reason. No, God definitely takes people out of your life for a reason. I've had some really disgusting, horrible people in my life that God has repeatedly removed. He's literally gone, no, you right there, you get out. No, get out. No, get out of this woman's life. You don't belong there. And to a degree, that was also unfathomable to some of the people themselves who were involved in trying to harass and traffic me, because they couldn't imagine that anybody could do that, since the US government certainly wasn't really in charge of it, or actually really the person, group, or organization that actually removed a lot of them. That it was really a collection of events, activists, some government employees, and almost metaphysical events that caused many of these people to be removed from my life. And some are still around in the best forms they can find today to bother me. More importantly, you have to understand that there's also the old cliche that God doesn't give us anything we can't handle. That's not true. We definitely go through events in our lives that we cannot handle on our own. There are definitely events that we have to go and get help for. And there are also definitely events that were not created by God at all. And I believe that very much as someone who practices a combination of Christianity and has also studied some other world religions. And those are the basic main statements I would make today. The third point I would make is that I learned the many times when people do make those kinds of statements, it is to give comfort to other people, and it is with the most well-meaning efforts. Unless, of course, they're expressing to you with their body language or hand signals that they really don't support you at all. But if someone says to you, God doesn't give us anything we can't handle, God puts people in our lives for a reason, they're just saying the most common cliches they can think of to tell you that it's not you that's actually a problem, and to be supportive. And on that note, I'm going to actually finish the show by singing my favorite old song that I learned to sing growing up in what was not actually a Christian church, but actually a front group that trafficked hundreds or even thousands of people in the US. But it is actually an old Christian song, and I still love it today. And I love singing it still today. Holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the dawn of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and sadness toiling, whereupon our that is this edition of Simply Stated on Christmas Eve, and I guess what you'd also call my testimony. Have a good one. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas Eve. Take care.